Silksong is a game that anchors its playstyle around quickness and agility. Hornet is not the knight, nor is she expected to feel like the knight when playing, and this is why many early game enemies and hazards actually have the potential to deal double damage, because with Hornet's mobility, it's expected that you would be able to move around obstacles with additional ease. I wanted to try and get something out as soon as the news dropped, and now that the magazine has been out for a few days, it should be worth going back and taking the analysis a level or two deeper. Silksong was given a massive spotlight on the cover of Edge magazine's 354th issue, releasing physically on February 2021. But if you want to pick it up digitally, then I will be linking all relevant resources both in the description and in a pinned comment. This isn't a paid plug, of course, I just really like when I see my baby get so much coverage. Anyways, yeah, update time. Immediately as you open the story, we are given a double-page title spread of Hornet in action, accompanied by the words "Kingdom Come." This immediately reminded me of the Puppeteer Theory that was hypothesized a few months back from threads of silk, sometimes appearing as though they are holding up and controlling various enemies in the game. Bonebottom's mechanical ant boss is the most prominent example, as there seem to be threads of silk tied around its limbs, suggesting that this boss might be controlled by something. The lines running down the text "Kingdom Come" in the double spread and recurring on multiple occasions throughout the read all seem to bring this theory back into relevance and suggest that there might actually be a bit more depth to this theory than we once thought. According to Simpkins, Pelin demonstrated during a gameplay session that you can actually animation cancel out of this mantling maneuver here when you grab a ledge and rocket yourself upwards. This is only further evidence that the game is going to be doubling down on maneuverability, which I'm assuming will give us some pretty exciting sequence break opportunities for speedruns in the future. I'm not sure what exactly the control input would be for this particular type of movement, but it seems like this mantle vaulting would be to time your jump with Hornet as she is accelerating upwards. It doesn't really seem like there's an option for a downstrike, as pressing down and attack seems to launch you into this aerial strike maneuver, which means there won't be any pogoing off of map geometry to get to higher places or anything like that, but seeing as how Hornet's playability is revolving around her being fluid and mobile, I don't think we have to worry about the prospect of this game being restraining in any capacity. Some of the platforms look to be suspended by some sort of mechanism, and there's also mention of collapsing platforms somewhere else in the interview. There's evidence of this in the mechanical ant boss fight as well, where the boss slams down a fist on a platform and it seems to disintegrate into the lava. The interview mentions the recurrence of crumbling platforms, lava pits, and an assortment of dangerous traps and snares all throughout the kingdom of Farloom. Pelin speaks about the game's discrepancies when compared to Hollow Knight. Whereas Hollow Knight leaned toward more arcane and magical elements, Silksong is a very real environment with very real dangers, blades, traps, and various snares that demand your attention as a player and quickly punish you if you aren't perceptive of them. Hornet is a huntress with many tactical proficiencies, and in multiple ways, the player is expected to demonstrate that same level of acute perception and attention to detail. The interview cites instances where Hornet is able to play songs as a means of opening gates, doors, and other previously inaccessible areas in Farloom. Hornet can not only speak to other NPCs and initiate conversations, but can also play her needle, or at least that's what it looks like. I'm excited to see whether or not Hornet has the capability of singing as well. According to the interview, even the language of the Kingdom of Farloom seems to be written in some sort of musical notation. We actually already saw an example of this way back in the Silksong Treehouse gameplay showcase in the Deep Docks area. Hornet is interacting with what seems like a billboard or a collection of notes that delineate ingredients that are on schedule to be transported somewhere, I'm guessing. And the order uses lots of musical terminology, such as measures or beats, as units of measurement. The language and also the culture of Farloom does seem to anchor itself in music, even down to the elements of Silksong's gameplay. And I'm imagining this culture will also be reflected in its environments, characters, and boss battles more and more as information continues to be disclosed. Since Hornet is taller, lots of things about the game were actually called into question. The camera distance has been zoomed out just a bit to compensate for Hornet's slightly bigger size, and the environments had to be a little more spacious to accommodate her faster movement, which ultimately led to the idea of the game revolving around the concept of upwards momentum. Helen speaks on the game's identity crisis during its development, saying that her fighting is so fast that it changes the way enemies needed to be designed, and her nature as a character is echoed in the way the world is set up. Hornet seems like she's up to a much bigger challenge than the Knight in terms of combat, and so the kingdom we are fighting in must be able to mirror those competencies. Pellin later took the Edge team through a tunnel lined with bells named the Marrow, and it was here where the team realized just how early on the game seemed to ramp up its difficulty. According to Simpkins, many early enemies and falling hazards now deal 2 hits to the segmented health bar. It's a balancing decision, mainly given that Hornet can heal slightly more quickly than the Knight, and for 3 masks instead of 1. Rosaries are the currency of Farloom, and they can be found virtually anywhere from the floor to the ceiling. While playing the demo, it's written that Pellin picks up a specific object, which is a frayed rosary string of 4 beads. And 4 beads doesn't really sound like much at all. At least until we recall how other games have handled this type of currency system in the past. Sometimes in Dark Souls, for instance, grabbing a lesser soul won't really give you a significant amount of souls, and as the game progresses and you spend time accumulating more of them, that amount becomes even more and more negligible. I'm pretty certain that for every frayed rosary string we find, there will also be another much longer string that will probably give us somewhere in the ballpark of 2,000 beads or something, I don't know. You can pay 120 beads to string up 100 of them, which doesn't seem intuitive on the surface, but you don't lose your strung rosaries upon death, making it a safer way to transport them. Sort of reminding me how you could accumulate masses of souls or cold bloods in Soulsborne games and not have to worry about losing them upon an unfortunate death. Bosses will sometimes double over and take a short break from the combat. This happened quite a bit in Hollow Knight, but more as a means of being in a staggered state to give the player a window to heal. Sometimes this would also happen for the sake of telling a story through the boss's animations. I'm immediately reminded here of the Hollow Knight at the end of the first game, where the boss takes a short minute to stab itself in efforts to purge the existing infection. This tells you more about the currently existing state of the boss and making it much more emotionally impactful. But enemies being in a staggered state and giving you a window to heal only worked under Hollow Knight's combat system, a combat system that Team Cherry seems to have overhauled almost completely. Although part of the same universe, Silksong is very much not the same game, and so a lot of how the bosses approach Hornet will need to be recalibrated, but does so in a way that still allows these emotionally tense moments to happen naturally. This particular observation might be digging a bit deep, but it was only something I noticed after comparing it directly to the Silksong gameplay showcase from Nintendo's Treehouse. Everything looks relatively the same, including the straight pin tool that Hornet is using, but judging by the proportion at which the meter is expended, it looks like the total capacity of this tool would be somewhere around the capacity of maybe 5 or 6, but this screenshot here very clearly indicates we can hold up to 12. This could be any number of things, really. It could be a passive effect of the crest, the capacity itself for tools across the board could also be upgraded, or this is just the default capacity and it's seen a slight balance change since the Treehouse showcase. You can modify tools as well, or so it seems, so it would make sense that the capacity for certain tools could be upgraded as well. Honestly, I promised to myself I wouldn't go too ham on all the finer details, so I'm not really sure if I'll be updating this once more. But seeing this much knowledge being divulged at once when just a couple weeks ago, all hope seemed lost and we were practically starving for any bit of info we could get, the excitement of it all is almost too much to take in. I'll be leaving a link to where you can purchase the magazine in its entirety in the description and in a pinned comment. Coverage of indie titles have proven to be much harder sells for magazine companies, and so I really want to support this release as actively as possible. I look forward to receiving more news whenever it's released, and I have the utmost faith in Team Cherry that whatever product they deliver will certainly be one for the books. I'm Rusty, and I will see you in the coming videos. Take care.